Alright guys, welcome in. We are here live on the YouTube. That's right, we called YouTube. We got them to come to Boone and film this just for us. We're excited to have them here, and we're excited that you're here joining us on our new platform here on YouTube. If it's your first time, welcome. Please feel free to subscribe to the page, and you can even click the bell. That way you get some notifications every single time we go live or we post a new video. So that would be the easiest way for you to follow along with us on YouTube. There is also a chat bar along the side, so feel free to comment, post, say some things, let us know where you are, where you're watching, if you're on campus, if you're off campus, if you're in Gardner 607. My former room as a freshman, what a place to be. But yeah, let us know. We want to hear from you guys with what's going on in your world. You can also keep track of what is happening in the Cru world on social media. So you can check us out on AppState Cru on Instagram. That's where you can get the most up-to-date information about what's happening, what we're doing, where you can get plugged in, all of that stuff. As well as our website, appstatecru.org. You can sign up and learn more about what we are doing there as well. So be sure to check those things out because you do not want to miss what is happening on campus. So tonight, I'm glad that you guys have joined us. Nick Nelson is here. Glad that you've joined us. We've got some fun stuff going on this week. So obviously, like we said last week, things are a little bit different right now, but we still want to connect. We still want to find a way to get to know you and connect you with other people. And so one of the ways that we're doing that right now is Dinner for Five. You might have heard of these things. You might have seen us post. It's an opportunity for you to connect with 4 other people that you don't know and grab a meal together. Have a conversation, get to know people, make some new friends, feel like Appalachian is more of a home for you. And so we would encourage you to check out Dinner for Five. There are people who have already been checking out Dinner for Five. Last week, they were happening, like this guy.
Hi, I'm Drew. I'm on the Cru Life team here at App. I had a great time at the first week of Dinner for Five. So, great way to start the semester and have some community even through what we're going through right now on campus and in our world.
So clearly, Dinner for Five is a good idea. But if you're also wondering, man, somebody keeps knocking on my door at night and trying to get me to come to dinner, I bet I probably know who it is.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Dinner.
Dinner for who?
Dinner for 5.
Sign up for Cru dinners.
Yep. You can be a part of Dinner for Five. Check out the link on our Instagram or go to our website, sign up for a slot. You'll get connected with a few other people and you can get to know them. It's going to be a really great thing for you. So check that out. On top of that, community groups are happening. They were back, started up this week. Hopefully you got connected to one and you got to meet some people. If you haven't yet, don't worry. Don't fret. It's not too late. There is still time to get connected to a community group. Again, on our Instagram and online, you can sign up for a community group, find one that fits you, your time availability, your age group, all of that. You can find some great people to be plugged in with. So do not forget to do that. Next, we want to hear from you guys. So we realize connection is a little bit hard right now. And so we want to know what you guys are up to, what you're doing on campus. And so send us some videos and you might find yourself on next week's live stream. That's right, you might be on the live stream next week. So if you want a video how you're spending your time, what your friends are doing, your roommates, how you guys are coping with this weird world that we're living in right now, maybe you want to video your friend who keeps falling asleep on those Zoom calls while they're in class. We want to see that footage. Whatever it is, send us some videos and maybe you get on the live stream next week. So we want to know what you're up to. Keep us posted and then we can share. We want everybody to know what is happening on campus. So you people out there watching right now, what have you been doing to pass the time? I know for me, in quarantine, been working out. I've been pumping up. I'm not going for bulk. I'm going for tone. But I have gotten stronger, I think. I'm just kidding. I haven't been working out much. If you had seen the sheer volume of Cheez-Its that I have consumed since quarantine started, you would understand that, well, I need to be working out more. But here we are nonetheless. And so hopefully you guys are finding ways to pass the time, to get by on or off campus, wherever it is you find yourself. So tonight we are going to get to hear from our main man, Mark Valentine. He's going to be sharing with us. So grab a Bible, grab a pen, whatever you need, and we're going to hear from my good friend, Marky Mark.
Hey everybody, I'm Mark Valentine, as Christopher just said, and wanted to have some time where we could talk tonight about something that I think is important. I was actually going to speak on a different passage, but I'm going to hold off on that and maybe do that in a week or two. But I wanted to speak tonight on a passage because I keep going back there for one thing. It's out of a fairly obscure book called Habakkuk. It was written about 600 years before Christ. And so it's interesting that I keep going back there, but I do. And so I thought I'd share some thoughts with that. I actually did this devotion a couple years ago for some colleagues, and I just felt like, man, we're in a place right now where this could be real helpful for us. And so and the other reason why I picked it was because I figured nobody would know anything about Habakkuk, and so y'all aren't going to get mad at me if I mess up or do anything wrong. So it's going to be good. I hope, I pray that God does something unique in it and through it with you all. And so I'll give you a little bit of a background. I'm kind of looking at some notes here on the side, but a little bit of background. Unlike a lot of the prophets, or at least some of the prophets, we don't know a lot about Habakkuk. No mention of his hometown or his occupation, who his parents were, what tribe he was from. His writing style suggests that he's educated in some way. Chapter 3, there's a song that breaks out that could easily be put to music, and so there's speculation that maybe he was a temple musician that was working in Jerusalem, but nobody really knows. And so there's a little bit of background information about that, but the other thing that you got to understand is the context of what and when this book is written. And so the country is at a bad place when Habakkuk decides to write this story. It's an Old Testament book. It's a very short book, but it's found in the Old Testament. And the country is crumbling. There's political unrest. There's civil unrest. There's war. There's threats of impending doom with the Babylonians or the Chaldeans that are coming in. All of this is kind of hanging over their heads. And in a lot of ways, it's not much different than where we are today. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go to this. And so that's one point that I think is helpful. The other thing that you need to know about Habakkuk is his writings are deeply, deeply personal. It almost feels like at times when you're reading this that you're reading somebody's journal, and you can kind of read it, and then sometimes it's almost like you look up and you look around being like, man, am I supposed to be doing this? Am I sneaking in and looking at somebody's journal? Because this is deep personal stuff, and it almost feels like you're doing something wrong by reading it because it's so sincere and so deep before the Lord. But I think it's important that we do that. And so these entries, these passages, these verses are written between Habakkuk and God as he struggles through some really hard times. And yet this little book gives us a verse that it basically becomes a major Christian New Testament principle, and one that I think is quoted numerous times throughout the New Testament. And so we're going to look at that. Hopefully that'll be helpful for you. So if you wanted to break down the whole book, you could do it in some pretty easy ways. The whole synopsis of Habakkuk is basically this. There are two complaints, there are two answers, and then there's one conclusion. And the outline would kind of look like this. The first complaint would be chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. And he basically opens up the book when he's basically kind of railing against what's going on, and he says, "Hey, life right now stinks. There's nothing going on that's worthwhile. What's the plan?" He's got wars that are breaking out. We're surrounded. This isn't good at all. And again, I would add, it's not a whole lot different from where we are. We've got COVID. We've got impending elections, which are going to be probably incredibly divisive once again for our country. We've got racial tension that's continuing to happen throughout our country. We've got cities that are rioting. We've got people that are being killed. It's a hard place. It's a hard time right now for our country. And basically, Habakkuk opens up the same way, saying, "Hey, life right now stinks. What's the plan? What are we going to do about this, God?" And then God answers, chapter 1, verses 5 through 11. And he basically says, hey, things are going to get worse before they get better. Babylon is actually going to come and destroy literally almost everything. And that's not good words. That's not good news for Habakkuk. And so he continues writing. And then the second complaint is chapter 1, verse 12, basically through chapter 2, verse 1. And his response is a little bit like, nah, that's not, you're not serious about this, are you? That's not a good thing. You're joking, right? Like things are going to get worse before they get better. They're already really bad. How are they going to get worse? And if you're telling me that's the plan, I don't like this plan at all. And so that's the second complaint. He has his first complaint, God answers, says it's actually going to get worse. His second complaint is, yeah, well, that plan stinks. If that's your plan, that's not good. And so God answers again in chapter 2, verses 2 through 20. And he starts going through these whole passages, and God's gentle, I think, answer in some ways is, hey, you got to trust me. You can disagree, you can dislike, you can fight against this plan, but you need to know that this is my plan, and you not liking it doesn't change the fact that I'm still good and I'm still in control, and this is my plan. And that's really hard. It's really challenging for us to wrap our minds around that. But that's God's answer in the second chapter, basically, of Habakkuk. And then we get to this conclusion of what Habakkuk realizes after this exchange back and forth between him and God. And it's in chapter 3, verses 1 through 19, basically that whole chapter, when he comes to the realization of, hey, I'm going to trust you. That's it. Like, that's the answer. He says, I don't like, but he says, hey, we're in a lot of problems. We're in a lot of pain. We're in a lot of challenging circumstances. What's the plan? God says the plan is that's going to get worse before it gets better. Habakkuk responds, that's a horrible plan. God says, yeah, but you need to trust me. And then Habakkuk says, okay, I'm going to trust you. And so let me just be the first to say again, I don't like what God is doing right now. I don't. I think I can be honest and sincere enough and real enough to say, I don't like this. I don't like walking around campus with a mask on. I don't like not being able to connect with students in a real meaningful way. I don't like doing this video instead of being in person with you all at the Grandfather Ballroom. I don't like that Portland has been on fire for almost 70 days. I don't like that there's rioting going on in Wisconsin right now. I don't like that college football probably won't happen. I don't like that we had to quarantine this summer after being exposed to a house guest that had COVID-19. Or COVID, yeah. I don't like that my kids, are anxious about a pandemic, and I don't know how to help them with that. I don't like that churches are being forced to go online or have been online for a while. I don't like that friends have lost their jobs or maybe had to shut and close down their businesses as they've gone under because of restrictions placed on them because of COVID. The list goes on and on. I just don't like where we are right now. But there's a key principle here that I want to remind us of. And that key principle, and it's really the key verse of the whole book. It's Habakkuk 2, chapter 2, verse 4. And it says, behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. So I think the question comes up, depending on your translation, it could say his or they. um, their soul is puffed up or his soul is puffed up. So the question is, well, who is he talking about? Who's he referring to? And in this case, he's referring to the Chaldeans or the Babylonians. And he's saying, hey, they trust in themselves, they trust in their power, they trust in their might. And he basically goes on and says, because of that, their lives are crooked. And you need to understand what that word crooked means. It doesn't mean like criminal or shady, like they're doing something illegal. But what it means is they aren't right on the inside. Their lives are crooked. It's not right. Something internally is not right. And he goes on and says their self-dependence has driven God from their heart and from their mind. And because of that, they are unsound. They are distorted. They are crooked. There's no place in their lives for God. And because of that, their lives are crooked. There's no righteousness. There's no room for God in their lives because they've trusted in themselves. And so then he draws this contrast. If that's how they're living, how are we supposed to live? And he draws this contrast, but the righteous will live by their faithfulness to God. And there's this idea of, hey, this is how the Chaldeans, the Babylonians are living. That's bad. That's death. This is good. This is life. And how that is played out is this is better. This is what you should be doing. Behold, his soul within him is puffed up. It is not upright. Because of the Chaldean invaders have inflated themselves with pride, their self-dependence, their arrogance. They are unsound and distorted. But he gives this contrast to then how we're supposed to live. But the righteous man shall live by his faith. And that word live is emphatic. It kind of indicates this promise that will come to those who are patiently waiting on the Lord. That there is going to be deliverance from destruction, but you have to live by faith and you have to be patient. And so I think there's great hope in the midst of what God has just described. And I imagine the news of, hey, this is how we should live. Don't live like the crooked Babylonians who don't have room in their lives for God because of their arrogance and their pride, but live by righteousness and trust in the Lord. And when you do that, you will receive life. And imagine just the news of that being spoken over the nation of Israel to the people who were so desperate in need of hope. And so I think that's kind of where we are right now. I think it's interesting. There are only two kinds of people in this text. You can only be one of two kinds of people. You can be one, somebody who's trusting in themselves, or you can be two, somebody who's trusting in God. There are no other options. And so it boils down to that for our lives. You're going to be challenged in this life. You'll face hard things. Some of you are facing hard things and being challenged right now. All of us, to a certain degree, are being challenged and facing hard things right now. Some of y'all might be thinking, yeah, tell me about it. I know that I'm experiencing hard things. I'm experiencing that right now. But my hope is that in the midst of whatever hardships you might be facing, you will be encouraged by this little verse that's found in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. They trust in themselves and their lives are crooked, but the righteous will live by their faithfulness to God. And it's just a really profound statement with a lot of depth. Paul, the main writer of the New Testament, quotes it 3 different times. He's a guy that for most of his life was probably trusting in himself. He had all the right credentials. He had everything that he needed according to the day and age to be a godly, righteous man, and he could trust in himself. But as he came to the realization of who he was and who God was, he knew that he wasn't righteous before God. And so he had to live by faith like he's calling us to do. So Paul realizes 3 things. We're saved by faith, not by trying hard, but by faith. He actually quotes that in Galatians 3, chapter 11, when he says, clearly no one who relies on the law is justified before God because the righteous will live by faith. And so he quotes Habakkuk right here, and he goes on and he just says, hey, the law isn't a bad thing. It's actually pretty good. It shows us that we can't be saved. The 10 Commandments are actually pretty good. Even if you're a non-believer, if you read the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not lie. most folks would agree that's a good thing. Thou shalt not kill or murder. That's probably most folks, no matter who you are, whether you believe in God or not, are going to say that that's probably a good thing. But the law doesn't save us. And so there needs to be something else there. And so it's impossible to have salvation through the law. And Paul realizes that. And so he talks about, hey, it's actually, we live and the righteous are saved by faith. He talks about, hey, there are two things that you need to understand. One is that no matter what we do, we try to live, if we live by faith, if we live by the law, we're going to probably do two things. We're going to try and be better than others around us, and we're going to compare ourselves to them, or we're going to believe that I just got to try harder. So those are the two kind of consequences or the two ramifications of living by the law. You can compare yourself to others and feel better about yourselves, or you can compare yourselves to others and see that you're falling short and work harder. Neither one of those work well. And so Paul's saying, hey, we're saved by faith, we live by faith, and then he goes on and he talks about, hey, we actually grow by faith. And so we need to figure this out and apply it here. In Romans 1, chapter 1, verse 17, he says, for in the gospel the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. He starts to say, hey, it's not just that you come to faith and then you live on your own through your own efforts. It's like, no, we come to faith, we come to Christ in faith, we live by faith, and we grow by faith. And so I just want to encourage you that this is a time where we need to trust that God's sovereign and God is in control. We might not like his plan right now, but it's his plan, and he's still good, and it's still something that he's displaying and something that he's showing that he's in control. I think Paul tells us that we're going to go through hard things, but it's okay, and we need to trust and we need to be patient and believe that God's sovereign. Sometimes I feel like we go through life and it's like, hey, this is hard, and I don't like this. I'm gonna rail against this, or I'm gonna rail against God. That's kind of like going to a movie and not liking the first 10 minutes and then just getting up and walking out, where you have no idea how the story unfolds. If you watch the first 5 minutes of Saving Private Ryan, and leave because you're mad about what you're watching or you don't like how it's going, you'd have no idea the rest of the story and how it gets played out. You would think that we'd probably lose World War II and everybody's massacred on the beaches in Normandy, but that's not how it works. And so you have to stick with this and you have to walk by faith. We'll keep talking about this. I want to wrap this up. It's gone a little bit longer than I already anticipated, but I maybe would just ask that maybe tonight or at some point you'd ask some questions maybe about yourself. Who is your strength right now? Who are you trusting in? Who are you relying in? Where do you turn when self-confidence fails and you're overwhelmed? A lot of us are probably overwhelmed. I don't know how classes feel for you right now. I don't know if you're a freshman up here, how you're doing with stuff. But where do you turn? Who do you turn to for your strength? Is it you? Is it your own personality? Is it stuff that you trust in yourself? What are you tempted to believe when things aren't going the way that you think they should? All of us probably know the right Christian answer, and we would probably say, well, God, no, I'm trusting in the Lord and I'm trusting in Jesus. But maybe you just take some minutes, 4 or 5 minutes tonight, and just sit quietly and see where your heart goes. Write down the part of the plan that you don't like. Write down things right now that are hard, and then reread Habakkuk chapter 3. We'll keep talking about this, but I want to ask and trust and believe and pray over you that we will live by faith, that this would be part of who we are as our culture here at AppState. So, miss you all. Look forward to seeing you. I actually was thinking about maybe closing us out by singing Faithfully by Journey, classic rock song that most of y'all probably hear and know, but we'll just pray instead. And so I'm praying for you praying that we would walk and live by faith and that you would experience this in new ways on campus. So, Father, trust these students to you. Bless them. Keep them safe. Amen.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for sharing with us and, walking through Scripture in a time where things, are crazy and they're different and we're navigating some different times. Thanks for your wisdom and guidance and taking us into the Word. So, guys, we're so glad that you joined us this evening on our YouTube live stream. Like I said, subscribe to this channel and click the bell so that you can be notified next week when we go live. And if we post any other videos in the meantime, you will be notified of them. Again, the best way to keep track of us right now is online. So check out our website and our Instagram if you have not already. That's where you're going to find what's happening on campus, what we're doing, ways you can plug in and connect with us. And so, grateful for you guys joining us. Miss you guys, miss seeing you in person on Thursday nights as we wish that we could be. But we hope that this is just a temporary situation at this point. So, yes, Nick, you might get a reward if you hit 100 subscriptions by the next session. So tell your friends, get everybody on it. We're going to be in the thousands soon, and you'll get a prize. So, awesome. Thanks for joining us, guys. We look forward to seeing you next week. And, praying for y'all. Stay safe.